Hello, Naz. How are you? Good to see you.
Good, Percin. How are you?
I'm also fine. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thanks for coming here and spending your 10, 15, we'll see how many minutes it's going to take with us on our topic on productivity. But before I start, I just would like to tell to the audience that I know Naz since, I guess, 1 year, a bit more perhaps.
Almost.
And
Yeah.
we know each other from our speaking club, Toastmasters. And she's one of our active members. And she has done a lot in a short time. And the more I got to know her, the more I found out what a productive person she is. And I wanted to interview her as well. But before I start with the questions, Naz, let me ask you, who are you? Tell us about yourself.
Well, I guess if the topic is productivity, I'll go with the more formal introduction. I work as an individual consultant in the field of climate change. I work with international organizations that assist municipalities, governments in pushing them towards climate action and improving their resilience for future climate impacts. So that's in a nutshell.
Very nutshell. But apart from that, you also have different hobbies such as Toastmasters, right?
Yeah, a lot of them, like Dungeons and Dragons. I love anime, comic books. I love dancing. I do Lindy Hop. So yeah, a lot of hobbies.
We should definitely hang out. Most of these are my hobbies as well. And all these things. Let's start with our topic then on productivity. Well, first of all, I like to ask this question first. What is productivity for you? Because it is important to set the term straight because it might mean different things for different people. So let's understand what is productivity for you. What does it mean for you, Naz?
I actually struggle with that question because I think there are a couple of aspects to it, and depending on your circumstance in life and the type of work you're doing, I definitely agree it might mean different things. So productivity, if you have a maybe 9 to 5 job, might mean you work very efficiently and you're on time. But if you're maybe in a creative field, it might mean that you produce a lot more. So and I have a background in architecture, so it's kind of like that sweet spot between those two for me. And then depending on the type of work I'm doing, based on different contracts, it might just mean that I produce quality reports and research and analysis as fast as I can. Or it might mean that I'm doing a good creative thing, or creative good project, comprehensive project, and do them in multiple ways. So it really matters in the circumstance. I guess I came to this conclusion maybe just to go flash back a bit. And when I was in middle school and high school, because you have a very structured life, right? Like your classes are ready, and everything is kind of planned out. So what that meant was to do your homework on time, do your assignments on time, start early on, and work them through in time. But when I started architecture school, everything went in disarray, because for the creatives, it's actually you need a lot of input. So it might look like procrastination a lot of times, but it's actually that last deadline push where you actually put all of that into the project or the assignment. So you might look like you're unproductive 90% of the time, but that's actually, if you have your channels open, it's where you're actually taking all the input or making your thoughts, how do you say, let go of your thoughts and your inputs, and then all of those formulate in that last 10%. So that's still productivity, but you just have to manage it well. And in my work, it's a little bit both of those lives. So I guess it was good exercise for me to go through both of those periods and be very aware of it.
I think both are necessary at certain stages of life. And I internalized your point when I was working with creative people more. For example, for our book, we were working with a person who draws the pictures. And with that, obviously, I'm more the other kind where like deadlines and I'll do this, that, because my job generally allows me to do so. However, in this creative process, yes, at some points, sometimes I, from my own perspective, felt like the drawer was procrastinating, but then I found that she was just letting this creative process flow. And in the last days, she did an amazing job. So I found out that everybody has a different style of productivity. And especially if you're managing teams, you should understand and respect that, obviously, and coordinate it well. So yes, that's a very, very valid point. And from the things you say, you sound like a very productive person. Well, I know you're a productive person, and most of your friends probably think that you're a productive person. But do you feel that you're a productive person? And I'm asking this question because, as you might know, a lot of people who are above average, let's say, on productivity, they might not always feel productive at different stages or constantly. So it's also a lot about the perception and the expectations versus reality, right? What do you think about this topic?
No, I think expectations on yourself or expectations of others from you definitely are like two key elements to it. I would consider myself as a productive person, I guess. I know like when to push when I have the energy, and when to push for the result, or where I need to relax. And I might be like maybe answering your third question a bit early on, but I think it has a lot to do with self-awareness and self-discipline. Because like if you like, I know very well like my highs and lows in terms of productivity. So I can, if I'm feeling low, there's no point in pushing myself to produce something, because I know like it will take me 4 days to do the thing I could do maybe in 4 hours if I'm like in my very productive mood. And if it's after 12 a.m., so be it. Like I'll pull an all-nighter that day and get it done in 4 hours instead of dragging it for 4 days, which makes me miserable as well. So it's really about like knowing where your energy lies, and when where your concentration is at its top, and then like producing. And I think the expectation side of it comes with a bit of being easy on yourself, for one thing, and also managing the expectations of others, because there will always be unreasonable deadlines. There will always be unreasonable expectations, but you have to, I always like put let's say unproductivity coefficient when I'm assessing how long a work would take me. And there also, I mean, in adult life, there's always other issues, right? Like we both have cats, and the cats can go sick that day, and we may not be able to work because we take them to the vet. Things are the same for people with kids or elderly that they're taking care of. So less so maybe for students, but of course, life, you know, I can't speak for everyone, but definitely there are responsibilities we have, and we have to consider that things may go amiss, and that is a coefficient in when you're assessing how long a task will take you. And so that you can relate to the task giver that, I mean, you can do it in 1 day, but you say 3 days, so that you're able to manage that expectation. So if you have a downtime of unproductive situation, or you have an unfortunate situation, you still are able to meet the expectations of the other party and still be on time. So yeah, that's kind of one trick for me to manage I mean, when you relate that to the other person, you're also managing your own expectations of how long that thing is. And so you don't get too stressed out when you run out of time, because you still will have enough time. But to be able to do that, you actually have to know and be very clear about how long that thing will take you to do. And that comes a lot with, I think, self-awareness of how be very realistic with yourself about how really long that will take you.
I think all the topics that I speak with different people, or not only productivity, but other topics, it all boils down to self-awareness. And that's fascinating. It also teaches me how important self-awareness in all these issues. Because once you know your limits, what you like, what you don't like, what you do, what you cannot do, your biological clock, your highs and your lows, then everything becomes manageable. Or you also set the standards when you work with other people, or expectations. So it is the core of everything. And it's a fascinating topic as well, actually, which I intend to do another training on, but that's another topic. Do you have any methodologies or techniques that you use? For example, just to give you a reference point, I use Google Calendar, and I do daily, weekly, monthly planning. I use Evernote for my long-term goals. I have a dream board here, as you can see, like things that I want to achieve. And I have such things. I will not count all of them, but I try to go with the approach less is more. What about you? What are some key components or methods that you use, or if there is any, because there might not as well. So
yeah, I'm an avid note taker, definitely. So
with your hand,
Google
right?
Calendar is definitely something I've been doing since I started working, especially because I charge my time according to hours. So it's important for me to be very realistic to my employers that I've spent like this much time on this task, so I charge accordingly. That also lets me be more self-aware of how long each task takes me. So that's one thing. It's kind of like time boxing in the Google, that's a method, I guess. So I use Google Calendar to first set like where I'm working, when I'm working, and for whom, which project I'm working for. Since the start of the pandemic, I think just to be more on the healthy side of life, I started time boxing my meals. I think those breaks are very important. But I'm like, between the meals, it's sort of very flexible. And I mean, this brings something in my mind from my I guess like my teenage years, where I like after school I would come and like watch 1.5 hours of cartoons, mainly Dragon Ball Z. And my friends were always joking, saying that you don't do homework and like then like, or you don't take a break for cartoons from your homework. You take homework breaks from your cartoon time. Which may not sound very productive, but I think that like times of complete like leaving off the work and off that thing that's concerning your mind to decide and focusing on something that's relaxing you is quite important, especially in creative fields, because I think that you really need to relieve all that anxiety and stress and the concern of your task aside for a while to actually be more creative, to be able to solve more problems. And in architecture, we always say like sleep on it a lot, because I know many times that I resolved like architectural problems, like design problems, as I was sleeping or napping almost. So those type of breaks are very important. So I try like that. I mean, I'm not very methodological about it, but I would say that giving time off is like, off times are very important for productivity. Like you cannot be 100% productive all the time. You'll overload.
No, there's a difference between being efficient all the time and being productive. Yeah. And yeah. Whatever you do, you should take time to rest. And what I also experienced is when you rest, you should rest.
Yeah, definitely.
Thinking about work or not being in that moment, or sometimes just doing nothing, not even watching Netflix or something, because that's not resting per se as well. Resting is something else. So when you rest, you should rest.
Yeah, I have like two more things to maybe mention. One of them is this thing I figured out called the 2-minute rule, which comes very handy when you need to handle household chores. Not necessarily for work, but I mean, as adults, managing work and like house life can be very challenging if you're like living alone, have things that you're responsible for, such as the cats. So, the 2-minute rule is that if something takes less than 2 minutes, just do it now. So I do it like if I'm lazy to put the dishes into the dishwasher, 2-minute rule. If I'm if I'm lazy to like sweep something off, 2-minute rule. Or I mean, even only responding to an email, if it's like less than 2 minutes, do it now. So that alleviates a lot of like piled up work. Another thing that helped me was the habit building and habit tracking apps, I think, especially if you want to learn new languages on the side or make sure that you're consistent in certain things. And I don't know if you're able to advertise, but I loved Atomic Habits book from James Clear for that. I think that's a really good book that I highly recommend. And besides that, I mean, there's all the nits and picks that I try and go back and try again. So, but those have been the ones that stuck with me, I think, the most recently, at least.
All right, thank you. Well, as I said, I don't want to take too much of your time, but before we go, which you answered a bit as well, but I'll ask you the final question that I have, which is, if I would come to you, like person A would come to you seeing that you're a productive person, and if that person also intends to be productive but is completely lost and has no idea where to start, what to do, and says, Naz, I want to be a productive person like you, but I have no idea what to do. What do you recommend? Where should I start? What would you say to this person? Like your nephew or your cousin or a friend, whoever.
I mean, first, I think would be that what that person wants to be productive about. Is it like being able to do your homeworks on time, or being able to manage your home life and your work life properly? So that would be the first thing. The second thing is to first, before worrying about what, like becoming productive immediately, to actually understand how they like, and track, actually monitor how they're doing things in the usual sense, and then as like actually get where they are inefficient. If they are able to assess the inefficiencies, or where they're like, maybe they're spending too much time on social media, and potentially the thing could be to delete the social media apps from your homepage. You know, it's like just like understanding where the inefficiencies lie, and bit by bit, I would say one goal per month. And if that goal sticks, move on to the second goal, keeping the first goal. So do not try to do everything at once, because it fails utterly. I've tried it so many times, it fails. So build bit by bit. As one thing becomes a habit, move on to the next thing. And like the whole process should be about understanding yourself, understanding your self-discipline, where you fail, where you succeed, and just tweak your lifestyle accordingly. I like this all like brings one something that a performance artist once shared. I don't know if you know her. She's Marina Abramovich, I think her name. She's this like amazing woman who had a performance exhibition in MoMA where she just sat at a table and people would like sit in front of her and like they will look eye to eye and emotions will run amok. Anyways, I listened to a seminar from that woman, and what she was saying is that a lot of times where the creative people, especially like artists, singers, they go to drugs is to dull the sensation they get after all those performances, which bring them high. Because if you're the recipient of that much energy, you go very high. I think a similar thing happens when you finish a task and when you sometimes succeed at something that's long overdue. And what she was saying is that if those people, instead of like dulling their senses, go to the studio, go to their like make a new painting, record a new song, channel that extra energy into something like creative, productive, then they become more successful. I don't know if it's scientifically tested, but at least that was her way of coping with that extra energy she gets when she does her performance arts. And I think that's very similar. It's still about very self-awareness. Okay, I have very high energy right now, and I can channel it into something, and then moving along with it, plan it out. Of course, like if it's a long-term project, it's always harder to manage. So it's good to be that self-aware to put your, let's say, milestones that so you get to the end. So always break it down, always be like disciplined about that, but in the meantime be very how do we say kind to yourself about your inefficiencies, because you're just human after all.
Good points. I especially like the end where you were talking about the balance between being productive and self-love. And I agree with almost everything that, I mean, I don't find anything that I disagree. And these are also things that I try to internalize. And in this conversation, actually, I learned and remembered a lot. And I'm sure people who are watching this, who are going to watch this, will have the same sensation. I really appreciate you giving your time, Naz. And before I say thank you to you, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, not for now, I think.
What else can I say?
Be self-aware and be kind to yourself and to others.
These are very two important points. Self-awareness and self-compassion are very, very important. Yes, it's not always about efficiency. Thank you very much, Naz. I really appreciated it. It was an amazing conversation, and hope to see you in other videos together.
You're welcome.
Take care, Naz. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.